Hey,
Welcome back, everyone. We are back with the First Draft Podcast, episode 5. We've got 3 segments for you today. The first one,
once
uh,
again,
and the first one is the "Am I the A-hole?" on Reddit. Always a fun topic.
it probably is me.
This next segment is the law of attraction. So that's obviously some more new age beliefs we're going to explore today, and then the third segment, we're going to talk about some pop culture and modern society. So, yeah, Blanca, you want to kick us off with
Yeah.
the
I
Reddit
do.
topic?
I
What's
will
the
kick it
topic?
off.
I'm like anticipating it so much. Like, what is it going to be?
Well, okay. Well, let me read the title is "Am I the ass for?" I feel so uncomfortable saying ass, so I'm just gonna
No,
say
we're
a-hole.
good.
A-hole.
We're good.
No,
We're
no, no.
good.
It's not because of the podcast. It's personally.
Okay.
I don't understand.
Hey, what
Right.
was that?
We all understand Google. Be quiet.
Google wants to be part of the podcast. Not being prudish or anything. It's just I don't. Sometimes I'll cuss, but it's just sometimes. Am I the a-hole for telling my much older sister that I am not her safe space? I am 28 years old. I have a 42-year-old sister named Myra. I love her so much, and she loves me and has basically been like a second mom to me. Myra's husband used to be a pretty chill guy. He's known my sister ever since he himself was in kindergarten. Ever since last year or so, he's turned out to be an absolute scumbag, and my parents and I have no idea why my sister still sticks with him. Mostly he seems to resent the fact that my sister is now in her 40s and that she's getting older and being a normal human being rather than being 20 something forever and ever.
Wow.
Despite the fact that she's basically stopped aging ever since her late 20s, she looks great. He frequently verbally belittles my sister, and I can occasionally see tears in the corners of her eyes.
Ooh.
Ever since this past February, Myra has been a nervous wreck. She still does well at her job, but it's like she's a functional addict for her husband. And these days, she hangs around with me a lot. She hangs around at my apartment during her spare time, and she sticks close to me while simultaneously refusing to leave her husband.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
I'm sorry, but nowadays I'm getting fatigued by all of this too. Last night, Myra and I had a big fight where I told her that I am not her safe space and that I don't know how to help her if she can't help herself. Am I the hole?
All right. So I think let me just see if I get this right. Maybe a summary. So the younger sister is
8.
28. Okay. And the older sister is in her
42.
40s. And the older sister has a husband who doesn't treat her well. And then the older sister runs to the younger sister, I guess, for comfort or safety.
Like a comfort zone, basically, is what I would say.
And then
Like a dumping ground.
I like
Okay.
that. I like that. I like that term.
Yeah.
And then I guess she vents, and then the younger sister is like, "Why are you putting all this on me? Because I want to live my life and do my things." And is the younger sister basically saying like, "That's not my problem"?
No, I think she's saying nothing's changing it. Nothing's changing. It's just repetitive, the same thing over and over.
Oh, like
Yeah, it's over and over.
Johnny did this week again, and
Yeah.
he did it
It's
last
just a
week
new
too,
thing.
and
Yeah.
he made me wait doing this,
Mhm.
and he
Yeah.
said he was going to do this, and he didn't do it, or
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think it's just setting boundaries, honestly. It's just like the younger sister is trying to set boundaries, which is a healthy thing. I mean, I have a book over there, like I think it's very important that people set boundaries. And it's something that I did in my own, I guess, work on myself, self-improvement, is that I had to learn to set boundaries. I had to even end some close friendships because of it, because they would never respect my boundaries. Yes, some, like more than one.
That's a really good point.
More than one. Yeah, I mean a long-term relationship. Yeah,
and friends, not
relationships, but friends.
How many?
Like 2.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I say end, we don't have problems. We don't have beef. There's no like discourse of argument, but we just can't interact on a daily level, and we can't interact in the same way when we were true friends. I
can't remember who said that, but friends, you either grow together or you grow apart. And it's just people, they grow apart, and there's nothing wrong with that. You mature, and especially as you become an adult, you pick up more responsibilities, and you can't, your friends kind of get pushed to, down the priority list, especially when you have kids and spouses and stuff like that. So that makes sense.
And then you set the boundaries based on criteria, right? Like you don't just set the boundaries because you're just tired of being a friend. Like you have to like respect my space, respect your space, respect how I feel, respect what I've got going on with my life, which is what you're trying to say. And like,
can I get off topic for a second and ask what boundaries they crossed?
That's personal.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you could like mention something general, but if
because
that's okay.
Because then it delves into other topics.
Gotcha.
But I mean, I will tell you that just like my time was one of the main things, like which is what I think this girl is talking about, respecting my personal time and my personal space, and me being able to navigate autonomously versus under the guise of having them integrated in every single aspect of my life, which some friends expect,
like neediness, almost in a way,
but not in a emotion. I'm not talking about like a relationship way, but I mean, just I think that's what the sister's talking about. It's like, I'm here for you, but you can't be integrated in every aspect of my life for me to try to like be a comfort zone for you.
So this is this is a little bit different because they're family, and family is one of those things where I think depending what you believe and what your belief system is, a family, I think they get a little bit more of a pass on that kind of stuff, because I know if I was troubled, now like the sister said, it's repetitive, so that it's like, hey, older sister, how many more times are we going to go through this rigmarole? It's 6 months and it's every X amount of intervals or whatever. But yeah, the older sister definitely needs to work on that. And when it comes to family, it's kind of
you give them a little more leeway than like a friendship or a relationship.
Like
I agree with that.
I know I would be upset with my family. I would
completely agree with that.
If I showed up on their doorstep at 3 a.m., they would know it's for a good reason, and I would be upset if they got short with me. I'd be like, I don't care what you're doing.
Yes,
you got to. I'm ruining your sleep. I'm sorry, but I never do this, and this is for a good reason, and we can talk about it in the morning. But I need a place right now. Now, if I'm not making, if that's due to personal decisions I'm making, then I think some grace is needed in the first couple times. But like I said, once it's repetitive,
that's a problem.
Especially if they have their own family that they have to manage. Then it's like, well, what are you bringing around here? I've got young kids or whatever. So, do we know if the younger sister, does she have?
No, we don't know.
No, there's no context.
No.
But even if she does, but even if she doesn't, she still deserves the respect of creating a boundary with family.
She does.
I'm not saying that she has to lessen her position as a, in quotations, good sister, but you do have to set boundaries. I think sometimes with family, friends, a relationship. Well, those are the main social dynamics, right? Friends, family, and a significant other. Like, that's our dynamics in interpersonal relationships with each other socially, right? I think that's how we do. I mean, well, maybe work would be another fourth category. Maybe.
Coworkers.
Yeah, maybe that would be a fourth category.
Yeah.
And I think also the boundary setting depends on like the sister, how comfortable she is with her sister being around her so much. Sometimes people are more introverts and they need that time for introspection. Like they need that moment. So even if someone's in their space and they're not really, bothering them, or not needing all this attention, the fact that they're there like gets in the way of them being able to just be there with their thoughts, and also I think that I don't know enough. I would say I still wouldn't know enough to know she would be the a-hole. I don't think she would necessarily just be the a-hole. If you feel like you need to set boundaries, then you need to set boundaries. That's just what it is, without judgment. But I do think even when you set boundaries, as the person who's setting boundaries, when it's someone you love and you care about and you worry about, setting boundaries doesn't make you feel better. It makes you feel crappy because you love that person. So it does give you a sense of relief when you're like, okay, especially like when it's your sister, it gives you a sense of relief. Like, okay, whew, I need my space a little bit. Forget the space part. Like emotionally, I need to breathe because I can't let this person who is even my sister dump her stuff on me all the time. And then I like help her clean it up or work through it. And then she goes back and gets more stuff and dumps it on me again. But at the same time, it also, you know, depending on the person depending on each individual person, for me, it would still feel crappy to set that boundary because I feel like I'm pushing her away, and I am, knowing that she's not in a good place. She's not in a good place, but I still need to set my boundaries. But I know that in this situation, she doesn't, to me, I wouldn't even feel that my sister was in a safe space with her husband. You know, and to push her.
She didn't say physical abuse,
no,
just
she
for context,
didn't.
but we don't know if she's alluding to that.
It doesn't feel safe. As a sister who would have another sister come to you like that, even without the physical abuse, it doesn't feel safe.
Yeah, mental abuse could be just as damaging. Yeah. So I didn't want to try to negate that
no,
aspect either.
I know. I didn't take it that way at all.
I think that gets sometimes like undervalued in that whole dynamic. Like, well, he wasn't hitting you.
He wasn't hitting. Yeah, no, but I didn't take it that way. I know what you were saying, but that's why it's still a crappy situation for the other person, especially when it's a family member and you have these certain ideologies about, or ideas, and the way that you live your life when it comes to family. Like, you know, like in my culture, Hispanics, you're just close to your family to the point that even when you all go off and live your own lives, that nuclear family, no matter how old the brother, the sister is, like that's still very intact in a way. Like
that's it doesn't the support system.
It doesn't disperse as much, I would say, as I've seen in like the American culture. And that is not a like saying that one is better or worse.
No, you're just saying your experience and how it's built, and the infrastructure of that system is all you're saying. I get that.
So pushing away my sister in that situation, like, or setting boundaries in that, would feel good, but it may almost feel worse than just like still being there for her. Because then like for me, this is for me. I'm not going to speak for anybody else.
You're speaking from a subjective
experience. I would worry more than if I had her just be in my space.
And I think
no matter how annoyed I would be, I probably would take being annoyed and having her in my space, then pushing her away and setting my boundaries, because once the situation started, I'm involved too, even if I'm not involving myself. So
yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's what he's alluding to, or he alluded to earlier, in the fact that I think family members get more of a grace with that boundary than like friends or coworkers or people outside of that familial definition, if that makes sense. Like, I think you give more, like my daughter, for instance, like she could come to me, I don't care what time it was, even if it was 30 weeks in a row, and she came to me at midnight every night. I don't care. Like, there's no, I would never set a boundary there.
You wouldn't set a boundary there, no.
But if it was like...
Same with my son.
Right. Yeah. But if there was like one of my friends that were doing that, like, nah, bro, like you can't just pop up. It's not pop-up book, bro. Like we left that in elementary. I'm not doing it. I can't. And I'm not dealing with your drama. Like, your drama is your drama. My drama is not always your drama. Like, I can't. And when I say drama, I don't mean like
situation, whatever your situationship.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've heard of this term. I think it's called, forgive me if I mess it up, like catastrophizing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that's a real thing. So
and people tend to do that, and then they also want to involve other people in that.
Oh yeah. And
that can be a drain.
Oh, it is a drain, yeah.
And I think sometimes, just my subjective opinion, people that do that all the time, it's kind of like forgive me for being cliche, it's kind of like the little boy who cried wolf. Like, how many times is it the end of the world? It's one thing if you come to, like you said, as my brother, if you came to me like 3 weeks ago at 3 a.m. saying, hey, I need to talk, and that was it, then I would take you seriously and be like, well, come on. I mean, and I still wouldn't have a barrier there, but like you doing that, I tend to think that you're being sincere and being authentic, other
Mm-hmm.
than.
Yeah, and obviously it matters what's going on in these people's individual lives too, and if they're what their lifestyles are like. If people
That's true.
If people have, if they're prone to folly, if this is a regular occurrence, then at some point you have to ask, like, how are you always getting in these weird situations where this stuff keeps happening? Like, why are you so unstable? I need you to come down a little bit. I need you to just behave, be normal, just do normal stuff. And I think that I've worked with people like that, and eventually they're not family, but someone has to pick up the pieces and make it all fit. And a lot of times that falls on I guess people like this younger sister. So maybe other people have put her in that situation too, and so she's just fed up. I don't think she's the a-hole here.
I don't either.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
So
I think the a-hole is the husband.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
If the context of what she's telling us in this forum is, true.
Of course.
Yeah, and it's pretty specific, so we're gonna assume it's true and address it based on that.
Yeah.
Because that's the premise of the question. Otherwise, we're wondering if the question is even
it's
truthful.
anonymous,
So we
but
have to
that's
assume...
just such a specific situation. It almost has to be true, right? Like sometimes when you hear situations that are so subjective and so personalized and customized to an individual's life experiences, I mean, it's hard to fake that. And I mean,
well,
and it doesn't matter if it's not true. The question is still the question.
Yeah,
and we're answering it based on the assumption that
it's true.
True.
Yeah, I think the husband's the a-hole.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not the sister.
I second that. So yeah, I don't think she is. So
and past a certain point, the older sister will become the a-hole too.
Oh wow, I didn't even.
Yeah.
I didn't even consider that take.
It's really inconsiderate and selfish and self-absorbed and short-sighted and narcissistic and all those things.
So
manipulative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, so
I think we're good on that.
Yeah, younger sister, not the a-hole. The husband and the other party, the older sister.
Maybe the older sister is the a-hole.
There's
That's
some
crazy.
culpability there. So yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap that up. And all right. So we're back from our interim second segment. We've got the law of attraction. So this is part of New Thought. I'm sure you all have heard of it before. It was popularized by the book The Secret, and also by Rhonda Byrne. Is that right?
It's Rhonda Byrne. I think last week we had a misstep on my part. I think I said Sandra Byrne, but it's Rhonda Byrne.
And it has bothered you so much that you said Sandra Byrne. So I'm so glad you cleared that up right at the beginning.
So Rhonda Byrne, and then I think Charles Hannell, the Master Keys. That's related, right?
Yeah, I think David, but he's years before.
Okay, so basically, you'll probably seen this before. It also goes by manifestation, which is a very kind of in vogue, new age kind of belief. Here's a quick definition: people can manifest their desires and attract things. The universe provides people with what they focus on through their thoughts. People and thoughts are pure energy, and that similar energies attract each other. So this basically, in layman's terms, your thoughts, if you think about what you want long and hard enough, it will manifest itself, whether it's wealth or power or that promotion or a relationship or just whatever you desire. And it's got a really interesting history that I think is worth exploring. So Blanca, why don't you kick us off with?
Yeah, sure.
I'm sorry, that's the part I can't.
No,
really
that's
read.
and we had. I mean, I wasn't in the New Age, or I haven't done any manifestation, law of attraction. So these things that I'm kind of reading off because I've done my research, but I have done a lot of research about it in the past. Calvin, if anyone heard that noise, our producer just kind of fell or something. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay, so it has its origins. So the law of attraction has its origins in something called the New Thought, which is associated with the man named Phineas Quimby. He he was born in 1802, I think, and yeah, in the early 1800s. And basically, the original idea of New Thought was that illness is caused by incorrect beliefs,
wow.
And could be cured by the power of the mind. So basically, those are the origins of the law of attraction. So it is now, the law of attraction has been adopted by like the New Age beliefs or philosophy, but the origins are rooted in the New Thought, which is a little different than the New Age.
I agree.
Yeah, so that's kind of the history, like just a succinct, simple history of it.
Yeah, and it comes in different forms too. And so Quimby originated this New Thought back in the 1800s. It really kicks off after, obviously, in the last century. So when Einstein discovered relativity, that leads to the discovery of quantum physics, and specifically the most famous equation in the world, E = mc squared, which is the mass energy conversion. So what does that mean, actually? So the equation means that energy is equal to mass times the speed of light squared. This was found in the margin of one of Einstein's notebooks, and is what led to the discovery of nuclear energy and eventually the atomic bomb.
That's how we created the atom bomb, right? Right.
So it's thermodynamics. Mass is energy, which is heat. It's a very, very important equation. The more important part of this is that this kicks off quantum physics, because now with this equation, you have a new understanding of fundamental particles. So these would be atoms and their nature. Curiously, you have the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, which was found obviously by Heisenberg. Which
Breaking Bad, baby.
Exactly. That's where he got his name. And why does this come up? It's so interesting, because this is actually what breaks everything. That when you observe fundamental
particles. What do you mean by break everything? I'm sorry. I just want you to make that, simplify that for me. When you say break everything, what do you mean? Break our previous understanding?
It breaks our previous understanding of the world and how the world works.
Okay, cool.
Because you have, relativity did as well, right? Because that turns Newtonian physics on its head. That over in Brownian motion too, but that turns basically classical physics and classical mechanics. We have a new understanding of it now that which develops after the discovery of electromagnetism. So with quantum physics and the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, it states that when you observe the particles, they move, and their movement is based, right? And obviously you can't.
They change their behavior.
Yes. So you can't. We don't actually know where they are at any given time because they move so quickly. That's why you have to use wave equations and Einstein's field equation, I believe. Feel free to correct me on that if I'm wrong. But obviously we don't know where they are at any given time. We can
develop experiments though, right?
They're not
exact, but we can get a general idea. Basically.
So you get a probability. Okay. You figure out where you figure it. It's a probability distribution. So it's like this particle is here or here or here in these kind of localized areas at any given time. But when you observe the particle, they curiously are not there.
And how does this relate to the law of attraction?
Because we're talking about states of matter. We're talking about matter. And they're based on the observer. So
the observer it
actually is a part of the experiment.
In a weird way, is affecting the matter. The matter.
Yes. So
I don't want to go into like telekinesis or anything weird like that, but
this is the basis of it. So this
is kind of weird though.
This understanding breaks kind of what we know about the world. And so you have
stranger things out here.
Yeah, it really is. And it's then that leads to the invention, or I don't want to say discovery. You have Dianetics and then also noetic science. And this was really popularized by a neuroscientist. It's always a neuroscientist, Joe Dispenza. He had a movie come out called What the Bleep Do We Know, where they did an experiment kind of like this, and back in the 90s or early 2000s. Basically, that's where it all kind of comes from. And L. Ron Hubbard, the noetic science was popularized in Dan Brown's book, The Lost Symbol, which was adapted
L. Ron Hubbard's a little bit different
now, like we're just assuming people know who L. Ron Hubbard is.
So
L. Ron Hubbard is
the founder of Scientology.
Yes.
Yeah. That's probably where they would know him from, right?
Yeah.
He's
but not everybody would necessarily know.
Yes.
They know Scientology, but
I just knew him. What's crazy is I've actually read the book Dianetics when I was young, like when I was probably 13. It was crazy because they used to have like a infomercial. You all don't. This is showing my age, but they had a commercial advertising it, and I was like, "Oh, what is that?" And then I actually was able to find the book and I read it. The problem, though, is there is an actual theology and cosmology also integrated within Dianetics. It's not just a stripped down version of the methodology that contends that the law of attraction is true. Like there's other components to his theology or his belief system that's kind of strange.
But
it's really strange.
But
it's like something that as much as I consider myself very open-minded, I don't know if I can accept every component of what he is saying.
Accept or understand?
I understand what he's saying, but I cannot accept it. It just sounds far-fetched.
Yeah. I mean, he's a founder of Scientology, so Scientology is based on those principles. If that's the case, I'm not mad that you can't accept it.
It's not just that. Like he has a specific mythology behind why he came to these beliefs and how he it's really strange.
But the
I don't want to go into that, but
no, we don't have to.
But the important thing is that
I can't accept it.
The quantum physics discovery, which the uncertainty principle leads to that understanding, and I don't know if I'm sure he built all that. Maybe he did. I don't know. I'm assuming he built all that around that initial belief. I
think some of that.
Because then I guess if that's true, if then, if this, then that. If that is true, the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, then it's actually not that much of a leap to say that our thoughts can control things. And I'm sure the New Age people would probably say something like, well, the Christians, they believe in prayer, and when they get cancer,
that's what I was going to say. Well, I wouldn't even say just Christians.
They pray,
I would think
and it goes away. And
I think any religious system, because to me, from my understanding, and you all will probably disagree with me, but I don't think it's too much of a difference of a leap in how you would categorize something. Like to me personally, subjectively, of all of the things I've researched and my understanding, I don't think that there's that big of a leap between meditation and prayer, and I tend to think that some of this manifestation stuff is just a different form of those practices, but a little bit distilled and a little bit watered down,
Yeah. Because it's got to appear on a 5-minute segment on Oprah, so they got to distill it into
Yeah. But
but Oprah's done a lot of sessions on it that are
But I tend to think the thing is that it's creating a space for the mind to focus on something that's problematic and maybe trying to find a solution. And in my opinion, I think the only way you can do that is through prayer or meditation or focus or mental work.
Prayer?
What is prayer?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Calvin, can we look that up?
You said you don't see too much of a difference between prayer and meditation.
I said I don't think it's that far of a leap. I didn't say that categorically they weren't different. I just said there's not too much of a leap.
So that implies that what prayer is, layman's term. What's prayer in layman's term?
Well, that depends on which faith you are.
What's prayer for you in layman's term? Just you, Fred. What is prayer?
I don't think my subjective interpretation of that really.
No, it does, because that's what we're talking about. Yes, what we're talking about. In order for me to understand your statement of you don't think there's too much of a leap from meditation to prayer, what is your understanding of prayer? What is your understanding of meditation for you to say that?
Okay. I wasn't really trying to go there with that, but it's still hard to define though, Not for me, it's not. But I wasn't really trying to go into like theological understanding.
No, you don't have to give me a Webster's dictionary or theological definition. What is your understanding of prayer? And not for me to tell you if you're right or wrong. No, I'm just trying to understand where the basis for that statement comes from.
I think he means like a talking
to God. Yeah,
okay, and meditation is.
In my opinion, I think even though it's interpreted different in the West, it's the same thing. It's deeper than God. It's talking to the universe, because I think God to me, you can't really separate cosmology from religion. Mm-hmm. It's the way humans try to define why we're here and what our purpose is. And that's why we have religions. And so I think when you look at some of these older interpretations of the law of attraction, like if you look at Charles Haanel.
Now, who's Charles Haanel?
So he wrote a book called The Master Key System, which I think heavily influenced Rhonda Byrne.
Okay.
Heavily influenced some of these. I think he probably influenced L. Ron Hubbard, Esther Hicks, all these people, because he predates them. You know, I don't know. I don't think he predates Phineas. What's his name?
Quimby. But I just looked up the summary of that Master Key, because I'd never heard of it until last week when you said it, and I would really have to look that up, because from what I read, it didn't seem law of attraction-ish to me. It is. Okay, you read it, so you know.
Yeah, I read it. It took me almost. It took me almost 2 years to read it.
So it's not really about. It's not solely on your actions giving you your desired goal, but your thoughts.
I think that's the misunderstanding of the New Age law of attraction, is that what he actually dictates is that you have to think about what you want, and by focusing on what you want, you create actions to get there, and you have to do the work to get there. Like I can't.
See, that's why I don't believe that's law of attraction.
But it is. Though.
Yeah, he's right. Yeah,
it is.
It has to do with what he's talking about with quantum physics. It's like basically the observer focusing on a specific data set of circumstances can create those set of circumstances by focusing on that and creating a pathway to get there. Mm-hmm. I think the problem is with a lot of young people, they think, like, let's say I want a peach. So I can just think about a peach, and you know what? DoorDash is going to show up to my door and I'm going to have a peach. And it's not that simple. You have to actually take time, focus, and then think about, how can I create steps to get to that goal? Or let's make it more simpler. A lot of people like, I want to get rich, or I want to own a property, I want to do this, or I want to get my degree, or whatever the case, whatever your ultimate goal is, or let's say a small scale goal. The point is that your thought will determine your action, which inversely affects the outcome of your works. Mm-hmm. You know, faith without works is dead.
No, I know. And I was going to take it to scripture real quick, because there is absolutely, it's biblical too. In Philippians, the Apostle Paul says, whatever is lovely, whatever is holy, whatever is pure, whatever is good, think on these things, and the peace of God will be with you, and the God of peace will be with you. Now, that's not law of attraction, because he's telling you to think on it, right? But there's a distinct difference, and I do want to say this before, because we have like a certain amount of time to talk about each of these segments. It is very good, and I want to say this, that spiritual manipulation is anything that takes advantage of a, let's say, weak-minded person, whether they're a weak-minded person or weak-minded in this specific circumstance. They could be a strong-minded person, but in this circumstance, they're confused, right? So manipulation is when you're taking advantage and kind of like squirming, creeping yourself in. What is the snake? What does the snake do?
Oh,
creep, like slithering yourself in, right? To just the right place, at the right moment, at the right time, to kind of direct someone's mind to where you want it to go. Right. So.
Right, but that's not really law of attraction.
No. But that's manipulation. I'm just saying manipulation.
I agree with that.
So the law of attraction thing, as far as, because you can see the law of attraction has seeped into like a lot of I would call them evangelical churches, right?
I've heard of it.
So
yeah.
I'm actually I'm
yeah.
evangelical, but
out here?
I'm evangelical, but I'm reformed. So it's like
really,
it's
I
very
never knew that.
Yeah, it's very based in theology, and it's just really theological, and
Jim and Tammy Faye Baker out here, like, right? and all that. No, I'm saying like the old school evangelicals that were
old school evangelicals.
You know, where they had those call-in shows and like, if you donate $200,
that's
make
manipulation.
Your daughter's gonna go to heaven by tomorrow.
That's manipulation. Even
that is not being my age. Do you remember those people?
Of course, and that right there is a straight manipulation. But there's a lot of spiritual manipulation in the church, right? So I'm like really careful with that, because I'm a naturally very, very skeptical person.
Really,
I'm a very skeptical person, and there's a lot of manipulation in the church, even when it's well-meaning, right? So there's a lot of churches that are like, if you believe it, it will happen. You have to decree and declare.
That's not biblical.
God, I decree and I declare that I will be healed, and I will prosper in this life, and I decree and I declare that. For me, okay, I understand the sentiment behind that, which is all fine, right? But the moment that we believe as Christians that our decrees and our declarations, the moment we believe that those things are going to dictate what will happen, is the moment where we fall into the law of attraction. And it's very dangerous, and I think it's wrong, and it doesn't have a correct view of who God is, the biblical God, because in scripture it says you will have suffering, you will have pain.
Yeah, that's all I know.
Right?
That's what I read, yeah.
But take comfort that I am God, right?
Yeah.
And that you will have eternal life if you are in me. So I take a lot of exception to the Christianity that yields to and incorporates the law of attraction, well-meaning or whatever. I can't live with it. I can't deal with it. Okay. It makes my skin crawl, because it's spiritual manipulation. And even the well-meaning ones that do it, I'm like, you have to know this is not right. Like, your faith is not going to heal you. Yes, God is going to heal you, but if your faith doesn't end up healing your son and he dies, right, it's going to be your fault.
Well,
right?
like, and I would even say, I think I was talking to my group of friends about this last night, like, you know, because the Amish are a particular sect of Christianity, correct? The Amish?
Yeah, I don't know much about the Amish.
But you know, the Amish will avoid going to a doctor.
Yes.
And say, I'm going to pray to God and he's going to heal me, and will avoid actual medical science. And I think that's spiritual
like
manipulation.
The Jehovah Witness with the no blood transfusion.
I think that's spiritual manipulation too, and exploitation. And it's like, there comes a point where you have to recognize a little bit of a earthly, worldly application
of a truly
science. I mean, what is truth? You know,
truly.
That's why science and religion traditionally have always kind of worked. They were harmonious.
I think I said that in our first episode. I agree.
And I want to say this, that God like values the physical body. You know, and if we can have 5 more minutes on this segment, because I feel like there's more I want to say.
Go in.
So there's
I was going to say you need the prosperity gospel. That's something that is, you know, Joel Osteen is
that is law of attraction. That's law of attraction. That's not
basically. Christianity. Did he heal all these guys?
That's law of
prosperity
attraction.
Gospel is you know, hey, just pray and you'll pray for wealth and you'll get it. That's law of attraction.
It's a false gospel.
That's false. Yeah,
it is a false gospel. It is. So, and you know, I don't know if you all heard it, but it's real famous, where this guy ends up dying and going to heaven, and he's like, or dying and meeting God, and he's like, God, I was drowning and I asked you to save me and you didn't send anyone. And I'm not telling this correctly at all.
I think
when he was in the storm, you know, this boat came by and was like, get in, and he was like, no, I'm waiting for God to save me. And then another boat came up, like, get in, we're gonna take you to safety. And he's like, I'm waiting on God. And then he ends up dying, and he's like, God, why didn't you save me? And God was like, I did. I sent you these boats. I sent you these boats, and you said no. You know, and so
But you know what's crazy is the people in the law of attraction would be like, "Oh shoot, the boat came. I'm hopping in."
Yeah, they may. Yeah,
the boat. I was thinking about getting saved, and the boat showed up. I'm hopping in.
So it shows a
there's a dynamic between the same concept that we're talking about, where science, religion, and maybe even this law of attraction kind of intercede with each other. But I sometimes I think we're
now, law of attraction is a pseudoscience. Quantum physics is different. Yes, the observer can change the behavior. Theoretically. Well, in this slit
quantum physics has a lot of issues too.
It's theoretically.
Okay. In this double slit experiment, it does happen. It does happen. The observer changes the behavior
of the electrons. Yes.
The result. The result.
Right. The behavior. The behavior.
And the behavior.
That's a very
wow. So the person practicing the law of attraction is not observing the actual thing, like in the double slit. They are envisioning, which is the observation of the vision of the actual thing. So it's not a direct leap from quantum physics to, but I don't know much about quantum physics. That's why I like
Charles Haanel. I feel like he explained it from a quantum physics level, and even though that theory and that school of thought has problems, I do find a lot of value in it scientifically and even spiritually, because I think at some point the spirituality and the science and the divine all converge at one point.
So that's pretty much the Christian understanding of the world, is that it's semiotic. So it's the physical world is symbolic of the metaphysical world, and that's what Earth is.
Did you say universe. Symbolic or symbiotic?
Semiotic.
Semiotic. Oh, yes. What's that mean? I don't know what that means.
Relating to symbols. So it's semiotic. So that's everything in the physical world is a symbol of something in the metaphysical world.
Nice. I never heard of that.
And
I didn't know.
And
I thought symbiotic was working. I thought symbiotic was something that works together.
Semiotic.
Semiotic.
That's what I'm saying.
It's a linguistic kind of
because I thought he said symbiotic too, which is where two things work together for the
for whatever reason,
advantage of whatever their relationship
right.
is.
No. I'm not talking about symbiotic. I'm talking about semiotic. semiotic.
Okay, semiotic.
So that's relating to symbols, and so everything is everything in the physical world is a symbol of what occurs in the metaphysical world. So, and that is actually what I think we usually, I think on the last episode or the previous episode, or the one before that, we talked about the danger of these kind of alternative beliefs. And this one, it seems like pretty. What's so weird about this one is it's so closely related, kind of like how you said, it's kind of closely related to traditional religions. So it kind of piggybacks off of them, but it perverts it. And
it does totally.
It really takes modern people. For some reason, this appeals to them, and it's something I'm still exploring, but I understand why. It actually makes a more modern kind of, it's almost like it's a modern kind of perversion or alternative Christianity, where they showcase the relationship between the physical and the metaphysical. If you want to, the psyche, which is understand as the mind now, but actually Greek for soul. So traditionally those two were
schools of thought that predate the Greek philosophy,
Okay.
Sure, but I'm talking about just that, if you want to.
I get it.
The modern way of looking at it, the mind, it's a relationship between the mind and the body, and it's not. It takes the traditional interpretation of it and it perverts it, and then you have the law of attraction. So then you have it's pretty much like a proxy for prayer. I mean, the only reason I bring up the meditation to prayer, and this is a subjective and anecdotal experience,
but just hear me out. I practiced martial arts for years, and part of our practice and part of the way you improve is through meditation. I've studied a Korean style form of martial arts, and a lot of that is based within the Eastern philosophy. And to be specific, it's based in Buddhism. And I never felt like there was a conflict between my regular religious designation and that, they kind of converge. Like it was just like, oh, I mean, I'm not talking to Buddha, just to be very general. But basically, I'm centering myself in a space of the metaphysical world to bring about tangible results in the real world.
In the physical world.
Yeah. Like when you have to break a board, my teachers taught me you have to take time to think about how are you going to do that. And you have to envision yourself doing that. And then, believe it or not, the more time people actually get to that point where they actually see it before it occurs, it brings about a result.
I mean, something happens because those boards
and they use it not just in martial arts. I mean, I think Phil Jackson, that coached the Lakers and the Bulls, I think he was a Buddhist, and he used some of his teachings to affect the outcomes of some of, don't get me wrong, he had a bevy of talented players, but still he used some of his principles within his coaching narrative. And a lot of those players, regardless of their religious affiliation, found it helpful. And they found it not to be in conflict with their spiritual assignment, if that makes sense.
I do want to say two more things.
Blanca?
I do. I want to wrap it up and saying these two things that to wrap up the law of attraction, I believe it's dangerous because you are putting yourself in a place of, I am in full control of my life. I'm in full control of my destiny, right? And if something goes right, everything goes right, great. But when things start going wrong, that's when it becomes very dangerous, because now you're blaming yourself for everything, right? And now, like, if you better only think positive thoughts, and if you don't, you're going to be attracting these negative things. At what point is it like it can become like a psychosis type of thing? Like, no, don't talk about that. That I'm going to have cancer because of this thing. You're not even going to the doctor. You're not basing your life in reality. You're really living your life full of fear that you are so powerful, that your thoughts are bringing and attracting everything to you. So I do think it's dangerous in that sense. I think at a certain point, it starts off great, but I think it is a deep hole that you quickly descend to, because life is not perfect, and give it a month and troubles are going to start coming your way. And then who are you going to blame? Yourself, because I attracted this to myself. It's great if life can stay perfect and you keep attracting it. And it's great if, even if negative things start happening at first, you're like, okay, I got to work harder. But at what point do you have to at what point when is working hard enough? When is that point? Because if after 5 years you keep practicing this and negative things are still happening, it's like, well, I'm not faithful enough. I'm not working hard enough. I'm not doing this enough. It just seems like something that could become crazy. And second of all, I want to say this, that I want to give an example of the perversion.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I had looked up, what does,
I like where you're going with this.
What does, thank you. What does Esther Hicks think about Jesus? Because the law of attraction purports itself to be a form of Christianity and talks about Jesus and talks about Christ, right? So they're not talking about like necessarily the Christ consciousness that we talked about last week is huge in law of attraction. So I had looked that up. What does Esther Hicks think about Jesus? And the only thing that came up was, what does Abraham Hicks think about Jesus, which is and I looked it up. It is the collective consciousness. That's what it's called. Abraham Hicks believes that Jesus was definitely a historical person, but that's it. There's nothing special about Jesus. Jesus achieved Christ consciousness. So in Christianity, Jesus and Christ are synonymous. They are one and the same person. Jesus, the Christ. In New Age and people who are studying the law of attraction devoid of Christianity, Jesus and the Christ are two different things. Jesus is the man who lived historically, and the Christ is the synonymous to Christ consciousness, which is what we can all achieve because we have the divine within us. So achieving Christ consciousness is a form of divine ascension, where we become the highest forms of ourselves. And it is a perversion because scripture says you can only get to the Father through Christ, right? They're like, yeah, but not through Jesus Christ, through your Christ consciousness. And that is a deception. And that's the one main thing that bothers me. It's like, if you're going to be set apart from Christianity, you're going to be New Age, be New Age, be law of attraction. Don't use scripture because it's a holy scripture and you're using it to pervert it, right? I'm not telling people don't, follow your own path. Yes, I am telling you, to me as a Christian, that's a lost way. But I'm not telling you, I can't tell you what to do. Do what you want to do.
Yeah,
but
sure.
don't take
holy
biblical text, right? One, because it has nothing to do with what you're saying. And on top of that, pervert it. And not on top of that, just pervert any part of the text, pervert the most fundamental part of the text, because Christianity says if Christ did not rise from the dead bodily, Christians are the most to be pitied because our religion is false. And that's the one thing it attacks. And that's what I have a problem with. Use your own New Age text. Find your own text. Write your own text. Don't use scripture because the canon is holy and it is not for
I didn't even know they
for uses to be perverted.
That's
where I'm signing off.
All right. I like that. Cool.
Dude, we went like 20 minutes over, didn't we?
Okay. All right, guys. So we're back for the third segment.
Nice.
We're going to the effects of pop culture on modern society. This has been obviously an underlying theme of the whole podcast.
It has.
We're gonna explore this more deeply in future episodes, but today I think we're going to comment on an interview Kanye West had with Big Boy, not from Outkast. He's a DJ from
Big
California.
Boy's Neighborhood. He just had a huge interview with Nipsey Hussle's brother, Black Sam, and anybody that's into internet culture will know what I'm referencing.
But this interview we're about to listen to was from a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think we're about to listen to an interview from Kanye West, but Kanye West was on Big's show when he made
Big Boy's interviewing Kanye,
correct?
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that way we all have it defined and clarified.
Let's listen to it.
All right. So, go ahead.
Yeah, let's listen to this.
What do you say to people that say you turn your back on culture or exactly like 100%? I have turned my back on the idea of victimization mentality. We are locked up. We went from 1 and 4. We went from 1 and 4 to 1 and 3. But we always pointing at the white people, but yet we want to spend all of our money on foreigns. We want to spend all our money on luxury as opposed to going and buying some land. America is for sale. And there's a lot of barren land. Disney bought a lot of it in Florida. But the culture has you focused so much on fucking somebody bitch and pulling up in a foreign and rapping about things that can get you locked up and then saying you about prison reform. Like, bro, we brainwashed out here, bro.
I agree.
Come on, man. It's the free man talking. Democrats haven't voted Democrats for food stamps for years, bro.
Okay.
What you talking about? Guns in the 80s.
We're good.
Yeah. Nice.
That's quite a clip. Holy cow.
That is a clip.
Obviously,
That's a banger.
That's layers of layers upon layers.
We'll try and condense it down into a nice time frame for you guys.
That's
it's provocative.
Given type of comment.
What do you say? This is a free man talking, right?
It's a free man talking.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so he harps on a couple different items there. The 1/4 to 1/3, he's referring to the 3/5 compromise. About
expound on that. What is that?
Yeah,
what does that mean?
I don't know what that is.
I know what it is, but I just want to hear you like your summarization of that, if you can.
So back in, I guess, before 1900, before 1865.
Summarization.
Oh.
Summarization. Why are you always calling me out?
I know, because
No, summation.
Is it?
Yeah, summation. Eh? Whatever. It doesn't matter. So the 3/5 compromise
summary's not a
was
thing?
it was a policy that existed before the Civil War, and it was actually supported by the Southerners because they wanted their slaves to be counted for representation. So 3/5 obviously is more than a half, and so you get more votes that way. And the Northerners did not want the slaves to be counted for votes, and so they were against that, which is, I guess, that's against common knowledge.
The Southerners did not want the slaves to be counted for votes.
The Northerners. He said
I was going to say that would have been great. The Southerners would have.
They didn't want them to be counted.
Because
the Northerners weren't having slaves like that.
Right. So that messes up the representation. Anyways, that's
okay. Thank you for summarizing that.
What else he said? What else he said? That as Black people, we're always looking for victimization points and to point everything at the white person, which is maybe in 1955 you could say that, but in 2024 it's a little bit difficult to make that case. And so I think he's right on those points. It's even if you were to play those kind of politics back then, they still don't map up. Obviously, Thomas Sowell is a great resource on this, and it doesn't.
I like Thomas Sowell.
Thomas Sowell's great.
I think he has faults, but I cite him a lot.
But his reasoning is very sound.
No, it's good. It's good. It's good. It
passes the sound test.
Some of the stuff I wish I find a lot of conservatives kind of brush away. Like certain conservatives that are in the media, grasp a hold of what he says, but a lot of them try to suppress what he has to say.
Since I don't know I do know who Thomas Sowell is, but I don't know much. But what do you think about what Kanye said?
Oh, I guess the main takeaway I would receive from it is that he's talking about economic empowerment as well. Instead of spending money on materialistic things that have no long-term value, why aren't we focusing on investing in legitimate generational wealth, which is what I completely agree with. He's saying buy property instead of buying foreigns, which foreigns, I'm assuming he's meaning foreign cars, which cars always depreciate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. He said pulling up in a foreign, trying to get it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could. I was thinking about
cars.
But I was thinking about like designer clothes, because that's part of the culture, and that's all of those makers of designers are normally foreign. Like when you talk about Balenciaga and stuff like that, could be
both that he was talking about.
I think
pulling up in a foreign, wearing foreigns.
Because a lot of people, I'm a huge hip hop fan. A lot of young modern hip hop culture holds that as a value when really it is a depreciating value. It's not something that's going to be value long term. And so I agree with them. I think economical education is an important value that has been lost. And I think that's what he's trying to convey.
Financial literacy. And actually, I'm going to let Blanca respond. And there's also a counterpoint I want to make that I think is interesting.
I like that.
I think he's actually, basically, I don't think there's anything wrong with not wrong morally, but even financially. I don't think there's actually anything wrong with this is more of a financial topic, but trading your money for these assets. They do depreciate. They don't depreciate that quickly.
I agree.
So,
especially some of the foreign stuff that is.
Yeah, it may appreciate.
And then you could. We talk about this with art, art and collectibles and stuff like that. I think the point still
stands that he's talking about not investing versus just.
He's not, and that's where he's a little misguided on that, I think.
Oh, hold on. I agree.
Yeah, Blanca,
I didn't mean to say I disagree.
Well, I know.
For me, I'm thinking that a lot of what he's talking about is actually I'm not sure on this, but I feel confident that if I looked it up, that I would be correct. I think he's talking about critical race theory and the problem with critical race theory and trying to make equality of outcome a thing over equality of opportunity, because equality of outcome is basically where, okay, not everyone's in the same place in life for whatever reason. We're going to do whatever it's equity. We're going to do whatever it takes to make sure you have the same outcome. But that is not good, because now you are socially engineering outcomes. You're socially engineering.
It's artificial.
It's controlling. It's manipulative. It's just taking control of societies. Now,
I would counter argue
that. Of opportunity, that's a thing. Like, you were going to have the same opportunities, but once you start controlling outcomes, equality of outcomes, it's not equal. It's called equality, and it's talked about in terms of equity. But the thing is this: if I am 5'3", right, and I can't touch a net,
we talked about that last week.
Okay, and someone else is 6 feet and they can touch a net, then putting me on a box to where I can touch the net, right? Okay, that's fine. But when
it's called moving the goalpost, like there's an actual term for that. Like
no, it's not moving the goalpost. It's equity. I know what you're talking basically about, where you're making sure that whatever it takes to get you to have the same outcome as this person, that's where the equality is at. But the equality is not in that. The equality isn't giving you the same opportunity to accomplish that goal, right? So, and as far as the victimization thing, I do think that he could totally, like, I don't think there's ever been a time in history where people are more victim mentality than they are now, you know?
I agree.
Because it's easy to say, I'm not doing what I have to do because of you. At the end of the day, this is where I think critical race theory and justice and all that comes in. That there's at a certain point.
I disagree with you all a little bit, though, so I want to counteract this before we end.
It's so important to ensure in society, each and every person needs to ensure that people are being treated justly and fairly, right? So, because there comes a certain point where you can let an injustice go on so long, you can't go back and fix everything, and like, you can't go back and make up for it. You can't go back and make up for it. And the moment, and so there's an imbalance of the justice scale, right? So there comes a point where you can't go back and fix everything. So what you
and are you talking about economic justice or legal justice or both?
I'm talking about right now economic justice. Okay. So there comes a time. So, like, let me just stick to this. There comes a time where you can try to help the person that has been that opportunity was taken from them by overly giving to that person, and then it still creates another, instead of the imbalance of justice being here, the imbalance of justice is here, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, that's an easy way to try to wrong a right from the past, but the best way to wrong a right is to not let it happen. Because you can't always go back and fix it.
Because then you're talking about reallocation of resources, like take from somebody that has now and give it to somebody who doesn't have
and
now,
that creates
based upon
a whole nother disimbalance.
Another imbalance.
So I think the most prudent thing and the correct thing and the difficult thing to do is to constantly, as a society, be assessing ourselves, right? And being like, is there undue injustice going on here, and work on those things. Not that there's an easy cut and clear solution to it, but staying aware of that, and staying aware that injustice can't just be fixed after a certain time.
I agree.
So we have to constantly keep work. It's not always going to be like this, but keep working on it to where, like, you're constantly rebalancing the scales of justice and not letting injustices go on and on, because at a certain point it does create groups of people that become disenfranchised, right, economically, and then it's naturally going to create this opportunity for people to look at themselves as victims. And to a certain extent, it's not that they're not victims.
Exactly.
It's not that they're not victims.
I don't think Kanye was trying to say that they weren't victims.
Exactly.
He said the victim mentality.
The mentality.
You know, because
a victim can even being a victim, it's dangerous to have a victim mentality.
Right.
Even as a victim.
Right. And I want to say that I actually, according to the system that we live in and the context of America, I do agree with reparations. As a African American, no, I don't even like African American. As a Black American, I do agree with reparations, but I think there has to be context behind it. I don't think you should just take money from one group and give it to another group. We have to legally define that, and that's why I asked you economic justice or legal justice, and sometimes they may converge or whatever. But I mean, I'm a little bit different than you on that.
There's a question
but I don't believe we should have a victim mentality and like I'm owed something just because 4 generations ago my grandparents or grandparents were slaves. I don't think that's the easy answer, but I do think I do agree with reparations.
Well, there was a question I wanted to present. Who do you think has influenced the culture the most that Kanye described? So, you know, he's got obviously he's had like a kind of a change of heart, right? Like he believed one thing, he went to College Dropout, like his freshman album, and then he went into some kind of crazy ideologies, whatever, found God and then not found God again, or I don't know where he's at now. But who do you guys think has influenced the culture the most that he has described?
That's a good question.
I think people that are I think the people that have influenced the culture the most are people that are in politics, because that's where you can influence the culture. It's like the people behind the scenes, you know, running the show in a sense that we have to be careful of, because how do you change behavior? How do you change outcome? I'm not talking about opportunity of outcome right now. Mm-hmm. It's through bills, through laws.
It's through law. Yeah, it's through law.
Through bills and through laws and those type. Yeah, you can change it individually one at a time, but collectively how to have the most impact is through bills and through law. So it's politically. So the people to me that he's talking about are a lot of those people that have had maybe sometimes well-intentioned ideas of how to fix something, but the way they're going about it is just so messed up. It creates so many other problems, but these are becoming bills and laws and becoming like popular in politics. Media. So I think those are the people that he's talking about, because it's a force. He's talking about a force that is taking over like media and people's minds. So it can't be, I don't even think it's celebrities, for example.
I would even go even further. I think it extends beyond politics. I think it extends into pop culture, because you have people like singers, artists, influencers, social media. I think those actually affect the culture too. And they don't have the right to pass law outside of their individual vote.
You're right.
But they have the power to influence and change the behavior, like you said.
Yeah, because
and that could be negative or bad.
Run with it.
Yeah.
The stage is set for them. Here's the ball. They pick it up and run with it.
And that's what I think he's saying. He's like, social media tells you should do all these things, like go buy foreign and go, as he said, go have relations with another dude's girl, and that's what you're supposed to do instead of like focusing on things that actually matter, like the philosophical discussions that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and social media also breeds FOMO.
Fear of missing out.
Yeah. You're like, oh my gosh, it creates these wants and desires in you, and the younger you are, or not even age necessarily, but the weaker you are in your identity or in your belief in something more than what's in this world, it really affects you and gives you that desire. It works on your desire. When you see something on social media and your friends have something, or they're getting a new car, like it changes your mindset. It can change someone's mindset to be
agree.
like, well, then I want that too. Why am I working my butt off and I'm still driving this old car? And it can even affect a person's mind that does have a strong mind.
I was going to say, it can affect somebody that does have a strong mind, because the opposite of that is that, like, there's other forms of social media that can convert you to very radical schools of thought, and like you could be a strong person in the way you are, and it can turn you negative. Like it can. I mean, I hate to say it. Some of the stuff that we watch, like with the MAGA people, I'm sorry, like they say some crazy stuff that makes no sense, and it's like completely off base to me. And I guess
or the left.
Oh, the left. I was going to say, I was going to revert that
either
back.
extreme to that point.
Like, the problem is it can control and influence extremities in behavior, and that's scary. That's the scariest part.
The thing, though, is that the MAGA people hold no cultural power, so they don't really have much of an influence to. They don't have much power to influence the masses.
I disagree.
Yeah, I was going to say, I disagree with that, bro. What are you talking about? Yeah, they're growing. Dudes, they ran up on the Capitol. What are you talking about?
But they are not. They don't have any influence over anyone else. They don't have cultural dominance.
Well, I don't understand that. There's a bunch of pop culture figures that are pro MAGA right now, like that are on social media right now, like Lil Pump, and like. He has a huge young audience.
I don't even know who that is. I know who Billie Eilish is, and she's not.
I didn't say Billie Eilish. I said Lil Pump. I gave you an example of MAGA.
Yeah, but like Amber Rose, she went to the RNC, but just because you're speaking at the RNC does not mean that's MAGA either.
I agree. I said specifically MAGA. I didn't say. I didn't say just because. Just because you're a Republican doesn't mean you're MAGA.
So they got Kid Rock and
Hulk Hogan.
Wait a minute.
Hulk Hogan.
A bunch of D-list celebrities.
I don't want to use the term. I don't want to call them MAGA because
it's
Donald Trump is Make America Great Again. There's nothing wrong with that term. You're talking about the far right kind of kooky, like aluminum hat wearing. Conspiracy theory.
You mean tinfoil hat?
That's it. The tinfoil hat to the point of like chill. Bro.
I'm just saying that it's another example of how culture can be pervasive and influence the behavior too. It's not just on the left. It's not just pop culture. Well, it is pop culture, but I think it can be problematic in forcing your attention away from things that matter and how we can collectively solve problems. And I think that's what Kanye was trying to say. Like you get your focus diverted away from what actually matters, and that can be negative when we should be talking about actual solutions to real life problems.
But I think that's what the thing is, that people are talking about actual solutions to real life problems, but people are coming up with radically different solutions. So there's this group on the left that is coming up with, for example, the opportunity, the equality of outcome, and the people on the right.
You mean like DEI, like?
Yep. Yes, and the people on the right are like, no, the solution is the equality of opportunity. So everyone is coming up with these ideas, but they are so different. Like the solutions are not just different, they completely oppose each other, and
to a certain extent, but I think they're trying to get to the same, well, not the same outcome, but a more just outcome.
I think everyone has the desire for justice. Okay, let's say all collectively here, we all want justice or more justice, right?
It's a virtue, of course.
But over here, the solution is so different from over here that they are like in opposition. Like our country is
areas of opposition, but there are ways that we can work together. And I don't want to delve into this too much. I think the point I was trying to make is that social media and culture can influence behavior based upon it being popular, and that it is influential. And I think that's what Kanye was trying to say, is that sometimes the culture can be so influential that it will divert your focus from what matters, instead of like actually taking on a constructive approach to what we can do to solve problems. I'm not talking about the schools of thought that you can come to get to the problems. I'm talking about the actual influence it takes to change the behavior to dictate how we can get to a preferred outcome.
Well, we need to, there's, I think it's Franklin Covey had this thing, and it's like circle of influence and circle of,
I never heard of that.
what is it?
I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
I've
So
never heard
there's
of
two
that.
circles. There's your circle of influence,
I saw
where
this,
you live
yeah.
in, which is yourself and your family and your community and what you can affect and how you can live. You can live within your circle of influence, or you can live within your circle of, I don't remember it. It doesn't matter. Your circle of something else, which is all the bigger picture things that are going on in our society and in the US, and we can live, or we can live there. But wherever you live, you mostly neglect the other. It doesn't mean completely, but if so many people are living in the bigger circle where they're only thinking about police reform, they're only thinking about CRT, they're only thinking about like all these big picture things. Meanwhile, like their family life is falling apart. Like, dude, don't even be thinking about that. If your kid is like not even cutting school half the time, like don't even focus on what's going on out here more than 10% until like focus on this. Focus on your immediate family, on your immediate situation. If you are struggling to pay the bills because you're living paycheck to paycheck, focus on that. Live in your circle of influence.
I agree with
and that's where if each person does that, right? Because we can like talk all day like we are right now.
Yeah.
We can all sit and talk all day, but
Take
that
action.
can also be a deflection.
Yeah.
Like from what you need to do in life while your life is falling apart. You know?
I can even take that on a macro level of politics, right? It's something that I actually wholly agree with Matt Walsh that he brought up one time.
Oh.
I find it very funny that people concentrate so much upon the presidential race. And in reality, this is piggybacking off of what you say. A lot of times to really change your political experience is to focus on local government. Are you voting in your city council? Are you voting on your governor?
Yeah.
Are you voting on your mayor? And people want to complain and say, oh, it's Donald Trump, or oh, it's Joe Biden that's having all this influence on my life. And like in reality, it's where you live and how you vote locally as to how your true life experience operates within the confines of your everyday life. And a lot of people,
exactly what I was saying.
A lot of people, that's what I said. I wanted to piggyback off you and actually
circle
support
of concern.
Yeah, your
circle
support.
Of influence versus circle of
I wanted to support what you said from a political level.
That's a perfect example.
And people don't talk. You never hear political pundits talk about. You never hear a bunch of these like YouTube political pundit. Even like Matt Walsh talked about it, but he's the only one I've ever heard talk about it from the left or right, and I completely agreed with him.
Yeah,
we should be careful living in our circle of concern.
Of course, and I think the modern wisdom, the psychology thing, I think they call it the locus of control or something like that.
There's loci, like the plural version of locus.
So yeah, they I think they want to, basically your pretty much the same thing you're talking about. How you can have your sphere of influence. It's an equivalent. So
actually, she brought it up. I was just trying to piggyback off her and kind of support her theory and just
but you gave a great example. Let me ask you a question and you a question.
Sure.
What do you all think right now is most influencing society? What specific part of culture? Is it social media? Is it celebrities? Is it politics? Is it YouTubers? Is it podcasters? Is it music artists? Is it
I think it's a combination of all those things, which it always has been. That's what I think. I think the only thing that differs from the past is that we do have the internet and social media, which they did not have in the past. And so it allows a more open gateway to be influenced by all of those things. But those things have always influenced society. And that's what I think. So maybe the internet is the most influential because it gives people more access to all of those things.
Actually, I would the internet is nice, but I have to defer to Jonathan Haidt, which is the social psychologist, brilliant guy. I think he actually does a service to that whole field. He traces it back to the smartphone. The smartphone is the crux of the issue. It's not the internet is nice. I mean, we had to use that for, we had to look up Britannica when I was a kid to write reports and stuff, but you still had one access point for a family of like 4, or however big the family is. The fact that you can get the wealth of human knowledge in the palm of your hand and in your pocket. It sounds great when I say it like that, right? But what do people use the internet for? They use it for non-productive reasons. And so
pornography, yes, that's huge, and that's yes.
I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking that.
And that is so detrimental.
I'm not knocking that.
Says something controversial. Holy cow!
That's not controversial. That's
that's
a good take.
Like you can go to secular studies, and there's a lot out there on YouTube land, for example, about pornography and how detrimental it is to the physical, the mental,
spiritual.
to the spiritual, to the society, to your future as far as like getting married, having children. Like it stunts all of that.
STUNT stunts.
Okay. I would say for me, I think the most influential is social media. Social media is the most influential. I think
it depends on what.
So we all kind of agree. I said the internet. He said a smartphone. You say social media, which are all like within the realm of the same ecosystem. When you
open up that smartphone,
you can localize
music artists are like, okay, they're over here to the side. No, what is influencing people is TikTok,
social media,
TikTok, Twitter, X, YouTube.
Not really.
YouTube, the algorithm, and it's not like influencing.
Have you ever used Twitter?
It's not influencing people to like necessarily. It might influence some people to change their minds. It might influence people to build stronger fortresses, like we talked about. It might influence people to the point where it's basically cocooning them within their ideologies and beliefs, where they're like can't see anything.
Dude, there's a bunch of good there's a bunch of good content on TikTok that has nothing to do with like pop culture, and like you can find like and it provides an outlet to a bunch of different subcultures that have nothing to do with negative influences. Like you can find like I spend a lot of my Friday nights on live, and I have a bunch of interesting conversations with people that are talking about what we're like. We literally are talking about what we're talking about, philosophy, theology, even stuff like sports and like my fantasy draft. And it has nothing to do with pornography or like detrimental things. It's like helping you gain access to knowledge from a community that I would normally not be able to interact with, like if I just stepped outside of my house.
Absolutely. And when we're talking about influence, I'm wanting to make sure we know we're not talking about just negative influence. We're just talking about influence overall,
overarching.
Anyone can get on social media and create a channel and go viral, and not just go viral for one video, but become viral like YouTubers. And for example, they become the influence in society.
I agree.
For maybe their group of people, which might be 5 million viewers. You know what I'm saying? Like those are the true, they're not called influencers for nothing. They're influencing your mind, and those completely agree. They don't even come social media doesn't, celebrities and music artists don't even come close to the social media influence.
See, that's where I would have
and the algorithm.
I would have to disagree with that, because I don't think that people listen to long form. I don't think people in general, and the majority of people, listen to long form kind of lectures or podcasts.
I would disagree.
I'm not talking about long form.
And I would disagree with you. If you look at the current trends, there's a trend towards more micro content, and then there's a trend towards long form content. That's what's trending. It's the middle content that's
look at Mr. Beast.
Trending.
That's not long form. I'm not talking about long form at all. He's a great and he's
going through a controversy right now himself. We could have talked about that's who we could have talked about.
Gideon, well, he now quit because he's dedicating his life to the Lord. But Gideon, like, these are huge influencers that, like, that's not long form. They're not even like talking much. They're talking, but they're not sitting down talking. They're doing like pranks and doing a bunch of stuff like that. Kais he created hysteria in New York City or someplace like
he caused like
a few months ago.
Yeah, he caused like a stampede or something, right?
He's a YouTuber. He's not an artist. He was treated like Michael Jackson. Like, people went crazy. So that's what I mean by influencers. They're the new celebrities.
Yes, yeah,
I agree with that. And then the other like artists, I guess is what I guess you would call them, use social media to exert their influence too. You know, like. You know, like there's a bunch of music I don't think, like in my day that I listened to, I don't think if the way the industry worked back in my time pre-internet, I wouldn't know about these people. So I'm thankful for that. Like I get exposed to artists that, and so I do think there's positives. Like it's a topic I want to talk about. I believe in techno-optimism. Like I do think technology ultimately will bring about good. I'm the total opposite of Ted Kaczynski, who I brought up in the past. I don't think technology automatically overall means a net negative to society. I
don't necessarily think that either.
Yeah.
But
you have some people that do think that.
Yeah. I think it depends on us, and we're shaping it now, like each individual person.
Because we can become influencers that are positive, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So, gosh. What a interesting conversation. Hey, we're gonna have to continue it for the next episode.
Chris is like, you all. You're looking at me and Fred being like, gosh, you all talk a lot.
No, cut it off. I love it, and honestly, we're gonna have to. That's why this is a series. So yes, we're gonna have to do it on the next episode.
We'll be back at y'all.
There's a lot I want to say about this too. So
we'll be back at y'all.
We'll see you guys next week, and yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Like and subscribe, right?
That's right.
Please. Hit the bell, click the thing, and hit the dingy or whatever it is.
The dingy.
What is it called? I don't know.
The bell, the notification bell.
Yes. Hit the notification bell, and yeah. So yeah. Well.
We're good.